Hi there, friend. My name is Audrey, and today I want to share with you a book called Beauty Marks Healing Your Wounded Heart, and it's by Linda Barrick. None of us is immune to suffering. We have all experienced heartache or hardship of one kind or another, whether it's been in our past or we are currently walking through a season of stretching, and it's difficult. It hurts. And this includes the Barrick family. In 2006, they were driving home from church and a drunk driver sideswiped their car, leaving the entire family in the hospital, severely injured, especially their daughter Jen, who was 15 years old at the time. She was in a coma for many months and she suffered severe brain injury. Now, 15 years later, they're still walking the hard road of caring for someone who is severely disabled. And it, while there was a period of intense suffering, now she is experiencing the long haul, the long suffering that many of us are afraid of. She uses these experiences to give us hope in the healing process. I particularly like how she exposes the purposes of pain and encourages us the great need of dealing with our wounds. So often we can put a band aid on, pretend it's not there, push through, um, try to do the right thing, and in turn we can leave those wounds still open and not getting healed properly. So she exposes the need for dealing with the wound properly. And then she shares the great joy of the fact that our scars can actually bring glory to God and spread the gospel. She points out, which I think is just such a beautiful thing to notice, is that Christ, after he was resurrected, still had scars. He could have been resurrected with a brand new body with no evidence of his suffering, and yet they would have been able to put their fingers through the holes. It was evident that he had gone through it, even though he was made new. So that can be an encouragement to us that Christ chose to keep evidence of his suffering. So, something that I really appreciate about this book, the first chapter really digs in to the purpose of pain. And she said two things, and this can apply to any area of pain in our life, whether physical, mental, spiritual. She said, pain is an indicator that there is a problem. And also, pain encourages us to seek help. So if I had a broken arm, I would know I would be in pain. It's an indicator that there's a problem. And that pain would lead me to go to the doctor to get my arm set, the bone reset. And she says the same thing when we're experiencing spiritual and emotional, mental, circumstantial suffering, when we have pain in those areas, those are an indicator that there's a problem, there's something going on, and that problem and that pain can push us to the one who can heal us, which is God. That's a great encouragement. The other thing I love about the first chapter is she actually gives 10 different indicators that you might have a wound that's still open, that still needs to be healed. And these are things like, do you avoid certain places or people? Do you get triggered and think of the pain unexpectedly? Let me see what one of the other ones was. Do your thoughts bully you? Oh, I know so often there have been times where my thoughts have bullied me. That's a great way of saying it. So, these 10 different ways you can look through and you can really reveal in your own self, wow, maybe I haven't dealt with this pain properly. Maybe I haven't sought full help from the great physician. So, that having that knowledge can be very helpful. And going forward in the book, each of the chapters is inspired by different phrases that Christ said while he was on the cross. Looking to Christ as an example in his hour of greatest need, greatest suffering, we can look to him and better walk our paths of suffering. He has given us a clear example, different ways that he shows us how to heal are being honest with God. Christ cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" We can be honest with God and express what our hearts are truly feeling. And she gives wonderful examples of her process of that through her journey of suffering. Another thing that she brings to light is how Christ forgave. He forgave the people that were hurting him in the midst of the pain. She shares that two of the people that she had to forgive that was most challenging was first the man who was drunk and drove into their car. But secondly, she also had to forgive a policeman who had pulled the man aside off of the road to investigate that he was drunk. And they did not fully detain him. So he was able to escape and drive off. And in his attempt to escape the police officer, that is why he crashed into their car. So she had to work through the process of forgiving that police officer who did not detain him properly, and also the man who rammed into their car. With that said, you can see that she does not gloss over forgiveness in a way that it's like, well, you just got to do it. She gives you honest and real examples of difficult, hard people to forgive. And she gives step by step ways that she continually works to do this, and how precious Jen, her daughter, was able to forgive so freely, and how that was a great example for her. Another one of Christ's sayings was when he was caring for his mother Mary, and he told his disciple John to care for her as he would his own mother. Linda uses this as a way to encourage us to serve others in the midst of our suffering. They experienced this when Jen unfortunately developed thyroid cancer several years after the accident because of all the brain scans that they had to do while she was in the coma and also afterward. So she developed the thyroid cancer, and the doctor's office they went to had mostly elderly cancer patients. And Jen was just thrilled because she realized that she could share the gospel with people experiencing end of life care. And she went and prayed with them and brought joy to them. And what a joy to turn our suffering, instead of focusing so much on ourselves, instead turning and reflecting Christ's light in that time. It helps us to remain positive, and it helps us to look at the big picture of the kingdom. What a great joy that is. We also have the wonderful promise that through the finished work of Christ, we are redeemed and all our brokenness, it has a purpose, because Christ's greatest suffering brought the finished work of our sin. Our sin no longer is marked on us. We now have the finished work of Christ as our righteousness, as our redemption. So that can encourage us that the finality of our suffering, it will have an end. And the purpose will come to the fact that it will be for our good and for God's glory. And lastly, she finishes out the book with Christ being resurrected from the dead and encouraging his disciples and the women in the garden that came to greet him. He encouraged them to go and spread the story, spread the gospel. And Linda uses that as encouragement to share the testimony of how God has been faithful to you in the suffering. So often we can tell people, oh, the hurt that's going on, and that's natural. We should have friends that we can be as honest with as we are with God, like we talked about previously. But we also want to be able to see the faithfulness of God in each situation and be able to share that with others. Jen and her family, Linda, Jen and their family have created a beautiful ministry called Hope Out Loud. I hope you'll check that out because it is such an encouragement. Jen has written several prayer books, and they hand them out and they bring encouragement to those who are suffering, those who have disabilities. It is just a tremendous and beautiful ministry. I highly recommend this wonderful book. Her tone is so gracious and caring and kind, and it will help you in any season that is difficult. It will help you heal, and it will turn you to Christ and the Father in heaven, who cares for you, loves you, and wants you to be healed through his power. I hope you enjoyed this book review. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to hear more about my latest and my favorite reads. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful day.